Thank you for joining us for this symposium, this panel, as we discuss the concert festival world moving forward from now into 2021 and beyond. I'm honored to be your moderator for this. My name is Lou Brutus, and I have an esteemed group of guests that I'll introduce you to right now. The first of which is the man who put the Danny Wimmer in Danny Wimmer Presents, the DW of DWP. Danny Wimmer, it's good to see you. How are you?
Hey, we're doing pretty good, man. For where we're at in these times, feel pretty good right now. Thanks for having me.
Good. Also joining us, another Danny from Danny Wimmer Presents, the company's CEO, Danny Hayes. Good to see you as well.
Good to see you, Lou. How's everything going?
Under the circumstances, I'll take it. Our third guest is an agent for CAA who can give a vantage point from that part of the industry. Jared Martin, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Lou, good to see you. Good to see everybody else. Happy to be here.
And I have saved the best for last. She is a Grammy award-winning artist, the vocalist and guitarist for Hailstorm, whose voice can stop a charging rhino at 40 paces. Lizzie Hale, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for making sure that pants are optional for this meeting, and just thanks so much for having me.
I need to add right up top that all of us have envy of Lizzie. We're all using these sort of animated backgrounds. That's not a screensaver that Lizzie is using. That's Lizzie's reality. The rest of us are going to cop that thing to use it for our later Zoom calls and stuff. But thank you all for joining me. This first topic, this first set of questions is sort of multi-tiered, so please take your time in answering. But what kind of support has the live music industry received from the federal government? Also, are there any things being done on a state and or local level that is worth speaking about? And maybe inside the answers, if you can compare it to some of the things being done in terms of support by governments in other parts of the world, most especially in Europe, Australia, and the Pacific Rim, who also have economies that have billions of dollars invested in live entertainment. Danny Wimmer, if you would like to take it first.
I think this would be probably more appropriate for Hayes because he's been more working with lobbyists and with the CARES Acts, and probably it's more of his side of the company. Sure. If you want to take that, Hayes.
Sure. So, you know, I think the music industry was very successful in getting the PPP. In fact, I think Billboard published a list at one point of everybody that participated in the PPP. We got PPP money, and I think most of our colleagues did. There have been some local programs, but it's so local and on such a small scale that I'm not really knowledgeable of it, and we haven't qualified for anything on the smaller scale. The Main Street Loan Program, which is the largest program out there right now, has been really unsuccessful. Most banks won't underwrite it. And I think maybe less than 100 banks are currently participating in that program. So as far as I know, very, very few. I think of the 600 billion that the Main Street program has, about $1 billion has been allocated, and very little of that has gone to the entertainment industry. I'm aware of one, but I can't say the name of the company that I know that got it. There's the NEVA group, the Save Our Stage group, that as of yesterday got their program. I want to say it's in Pelosi's bill, and I think it's in Mnuchin's response proposal. So that's actually pretty positive progress, because I was worried that one wouldn't get support, and it seems to be getting some support. Internationally, other countries have been faster to come to the music industry's aid. I want to say the UK and I believe Australia both launched pretty aggressive programs, and I'm sure other countries have as well. Unfortunately, the US has been a little bit slow there.
If we can move over now to Jared, from your standpoint as an agent, what do you think could be done on a federal level to assist and help move things forward?
I think on a federal level, in terms of financial help, obviously the Save Our Stages bill will be a big help to the independent venues that are struggling to pay rent, and you know, your smaller venues up to 1,000 capacity, they don't have much sitting in the bank to let them last through, you know, what could be a 12 to 18 month shutdown of concerts for them. So any help they can get immediately would be extremely helpful. It's been amazing to me to see how many of these venues have survived this long so far, and you're starting to see, feels like there's a new venue or two a week that have hosted a bunch of shows that I've booked at, like the Rex Theater last week in Pittsburgh went down, and you know, the Satellite in LA was one of the first to go down. And so the sooner those you know, those venues can have avenues to get financial help from the government, that will help. But I think in terms of getting back to normal, the biggest thing I think is lacking, and Danny will know from working with the local municipalities, but overall, it feels like we're all waiting for someone to give us a path to shows, but there's not much productivity of, hey, here's the 5 steps we need to get back to doing full capacity concerts. There's no, call it task force or whatever. There's very little action on the government side being proactive. It's just we're all sitting here waiting for some sort of direction of, hey, you can do this, but there's not much, you know, to point to that I think is a plan to move forward.
Danny Wimmer, you've been doing this for years at several spots around the country. So with all of the contacts and friends and associates you have, what has been their take on how we move this forward and how we get some either some pressure on the government for some extra help, or how do we all sort of save ourselves?
Well, I can only really, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of independent promoters out there. You know, the things that we're doing as a company, you can't be sitting here waiting for the gates to open. You have to use your relationships to find business. Right now, we are pivoting into the live streaming. We have our first live stream tomorrow with Corey Taylor. And we have a bunch of offers out, a bunch of offers that have been accepted. Also, there's not this one standard, there's no regulation that fits us, all cities or all states. It's every city is different than the other cities. And right now we've locked in about 5 venues across the country that would be ready to open in some social distancing model. It's really, this is the time to reinvent. And for us right now, we're using this time to reinvent the company. You know, we launched our first tour that starts actually tomorrow with Aaron and Sully. Aaron from Stain and Sully from Godsmack, and it's a 15-day tour. It's going to be a drive-in tour mixed in with some social distancing pods. And you know, I'm this is the time to try to reinvent. And we can't depend on the government right now because they're moving too slow. I don't feel like we're getting appreciated. We're one of the hardest hit industries, and to be sitting here waiting for them to come assist us would be a huge mistake. You've got to dive deep. You've got to be thinking of ways to get to your local government to figure out how to open in some fashion. Not the best answer. You know, it's just, I'm just being honest. It is, I just feel like we're being overlooked as an industry, and I love what Neva's doing. They're fighting the good fight. But I'm speaking to the independents right now. You just can't wait. You got to be thinking about how to use your relationships with certain managers, certain artists, and to find business. And one reason why we're getting into the live streaming business, as we're trying to understand, is there money to be made for the artist or for the promoter. For us as DWP, it just feels good getting our team working and getting crews and contractors that depend on us. It's the best feeling in the world seeing your team working, and a lot of the independent contractors outside of DWP, getting them back to work. I got to tell you, it's one of the best feelings. I can't announce the pay-per-view we did last week yet, but I had a lot of crew members and techs and monitor and front of house people and camera people that just came in and gave me big and just huge hugs. And I'm just so proud to get people working again. And it just crushes me that how hard it's hit our industry. And really, back to the independents, you got to use your relationship that you have with acts and managers and agents to find business, because you can't depend on the government right now. I don't see it.
Danny, that's a perfect place to jump over to Lizzie, and Lizzie, get your perspective as an artist on weathering these times, and how do you keep a band together? How do you keep your crew together? For Hailstorm, you've had essentially the same family crew unit around you for many, many years. So how do you sort of shepherd everyone through these times?
We've been independently working with the same companies that you guys have mentioned, actually, with Neva and Music Cares, and we started our own initiative, Roadie Strong, and just trying to spread awareness to everyone, because absolutely, not only are these stages our sacred churches as artists, but our roadies are our road family, and these people, and we're very lucky as artists. Like, I can, get online and sing a song, and, or I can do things independently during this time. But, there's not a whole lot of people that want to watch somebody change strings on a guitar. So we've been doing everything that we can for our own. And also, like I said, just spreading that awareness. It's been hard for us, and we're one of the lucky ones, because we are writing for a record right now. We're keeping ourselves busy, but it's been over 20 years since I've gone this long without having a show. And that knocks you in a way that I don't necessarily know that I was prepared for, because it's like this, this hole is there that can't be filled with anything else. Believe me, I've been trying to fill it. I've been keeping myself in the top of the pile, hopefully, during this whole time. But I
gotta add something there, Lizzie. I think you're gonna come out of it bigger, because you have blown my mind of what you've been doing. You have not sat back. You've taken control of this. You're focused on things that you can control. Mm-hmm. And you've blown me away with some of the things and performances you have done. Your voice is so powerful and compelling. You've done some stuff with us. You did a beautiful song for us that just crushes it. And you, as an artist, beyond, I think you're going to come out of bigger, because you have not been sitting back waiting for the gates to open up. You have created your own show. You've been doing a lot of stuff, collaborations, which I love seeing collaborations in rock and roll. We lack that as a genre, the collabs. And I really think you're going to be one of the artists that comes out bigger. You've just been unbelievable during this process.
Danny, you just brought up a really good point. And I had a recent discussion with Nikki Sixx about the latest 6 a.m. song, which features a ton of guests. And also another good example would be something Lizzie took part in, which was CMFT from Corey Taylor, his new record. Tons of rock guests. Something that I think has been greatly lacking in the rock world happens very commonly over in hip hop and the pop world. Everybody hops on one another's bandwagons to help out. Whereas sometimes in the rock world, people piss all over one another once they get a little bit successful. I sometimes refer to that as Nickelback derangement syndrome, where somebody gets popular and then, everybody piles on. Is that something that would also sort of help move everybody forward and sort of raise all boats with the same tide?
Who's that directed to?
That can be directed to anybody who wants to hop in on it, because I think it
Uh,
affects all of you differently.
Well, Liz, I think you were about to jump in on that one.
You know, I was
I'm
just
ready to
trying
follow you up on that though.
in my personal opinion, I think that it's important that we all lift each other up, and that we all, as artists and as people, remember that we're all in this together. And very similar to what Danny said, you know, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to lean on each other. You know, there's so many young bands right now that were some of the unlucky ones that maybe we won't even be able to, you know, to hear about in the coming years, because they were dependent on these summer festival shows and breaking out in, you know, doing their first record. And so I think that we all kind of have a responsibility to each other. Absolutely.
If we can talk about moving shows forward, both in the near term, like some of the things that Danny Wimmer had referred to that are happening currently or soon, and then further down the line, how are things going to look in terms of audience layout, both standing or seated or drive-in? What is it like for food concessions and catering backstage and merch sales, meet and greets? What about on-site testing and temperature checks at the gate? How do all these things figure in? And again, I'd like to hear about that from everybody's perspective.
Well, I want to follow up with the last question first, because
Sure.
now I'm speaking to the rock community. Obviously, I think the community knows DWP as a rock festival company, and as we started getting into other territories like country, and what I saw with country was collabs. And this is kind of going back to the last question. And when I went to the CMAs, you saw Garth Brooks with Blake Shelton. You saw Carrie Underwood with Dolly Parton. You saw, you know, Brandy Carlisle. You just saw collaboration. You saw the biggest artists on each other's songs, right? You see each other writing for other artists. And country is so relevant to me because of that, how the top of the game works with the developing artist, and country is very healthy. And then if you look at hip hop collabs, I don't know why rock and roll, that's how rock and roll was built on collabs. And what we're seeing today finally is the community coming together. And it's about time, because I mean, listen, rock and roll is the biggest music listen genre out there, but we do a bad job bringing the new artists up. And if you look at country, they do an incredible job with the top bringing the bottom up. And if you look at hip hop, the collabs, the top work with the new. And some reason in rock, we lack that. We're all fighting for this little piece of meat on the bone. It doesn't have to be that way. And the one thing that I love that's happening right now is vulnerability in rock. And we needed a little bit of that. And I'm hoping that with COVID, it's going to change the mentality of the collabs and the jam sessions that rock and roll really was the innovator in. Why are we missing that? Let's bring it back. That's kind of, I'm talking to the rock community, and Liz, you have been doing that. I've been watching you jam out with other artists, and we lack that as a genre. And I think over COVID, it's being vulnerable during these times because the fans want to see it. And you know, once again, I'm proud of what you've been doing. And sorry about that. Now the question, I'll jump into the next question. You know, it depends on what size would come back. You know, obviously things are gonna change. You know, I kind of refer back to when 9/11 happened, how security changed, and when we went through security, we will have apps. We'll probably go into a cashless place, you know, where your RFID will have your credit card, where we're not exchanging money. There'll be hand washing stations. Maybe there'll be different times you can come in. It just depends where we're at. Do we have a cure, or we don't have a cure? It just really depends how we're coming back. It's, it feels like there's still a lot of things up in the air. We're all trying to figure out how to bring people back safely. We'll be in a world of having masks that will be around for years. Different technologies are going to have different ways of having tests. It would be hard to test everybody walking in. I don't think that's going to be our reality, but I think the consumer should expect change. The porta potty system will probably look a lot different, maybe for the better. But change is here. Change is coming, and people should expect a slower system of getting in the doors. We'll be testing for temperatures. We're all working we're all working now on trying to figure out what is going to be the safest way to get people back into the gates.
Jared, if we could have you talk about, from your perspective as an agent, what is going to need to happen for folks like you and for the artists that you represent to get this thing moving forward again?
I think the biggest thing to get things back on track would be, what we haven't really addressed is that, from the festival perspective, finding one city where you can have a festival at, whether it's full capacity, 75% capacity, having one place to do that, that's going to be great. But what will fully bring everything back is when we can route out our 20 to 30 show tours, and you're going to have to find ways to make that work across the country. I think, right now, I think most of my clients and my belief is that sometime in the latter half of next year, mid to latter half of next year, we'll have a world where there will be the ability to route around the whole country and have concerts. And the hope is that you'll have somewhere above 75% capacity so that you can do that in a way that's economically sound and, and, much similar to what it was before COVID. And I think that's still the hope. That's the optimistic point of view. That being said, to get to that point, I think I always tell my artists that I've been talking to on a regular basis, there's going to be, call it 4 paths to get to that place. First path, you hope that there's a vaccine and that enough people take it and it's effective enough to where we can return to a pretty much normal life. We'll still have, our safety precautions in place, potentially masks or hand washing, but with the vaccine, you hope that we can return to full capacities across the country. Then 2, you hope there's a treatment that comes out that makes this sickness, less lethal or less dangerous than it is today, and people can be more comfortable, thinking it's just like the flu, and you'll take your own calculated risk. But in terms of the events business, we can do things the way we did before. Number 3, potentially testing. I know some of the sports teams are talking about doing the 5-minute rapid test that's hopefully or the 15-minute rapid test that's going to cost $5, and you just add that to your ticket price. I think, sports teams have much less games in a year in the way that, concert venues where, an arena will have, call it, in the NBA, you'll have 40 games a year, where a concert venue is going to have 250 to 300 shows a year. So it's going to be tough to make that work, but potentially an avenue to go there. And then number 4, the eternal optimist point of view is just that this virus will mutate into a place that it's not relevant sometime next year. I doubt that's going to happen, but those are the 4 pillars of where I think there's a path to getting back to some version of normal. I hope that it's the normal we had before as soon as possible, but you never know. I think right now, where I sit and where most of my colleagues sit and our clients sit is you hope that it will get as close to normal as it was before sometime in the next year and a half. But 5 months with no progress, maybe that all changes. We have to get used to the fact that, venues are only going to be able to hold 50% of the people they used to. Drive-ins, which right now aren't, the most economically feasible, that may need to be the new reality for a little bit. And acts are just going to have to start becoming more and more accepting of that.
This next one, really, I'd like to hear anybody and everybody sort of chime in, but how long can we go on the way that we're going on? Is there an infinite amount of patience and money that everybody involved in this equation has to sort of hold out, or at some point does this really just end this industry as we know it if this isn't fixed in a year or two? Lizzie, maybe you can start from your standpoint as an artist. Like, how long can you go on the way you've been going on?
Not forever, I'll tell you that. And luckily, you know, as I have an amazing business management team, and you know, we're getting by. But I mean, as you know, especially in this genre, we make most of our, you know, our money, and we make a living mostly from touring, you know, and because we have a lot of people involved and a lot of fingers in the pie, and that's where we're at. So it's hard for me as an artist to have such an uncertain, the future's unknown, you know, and I've been advising my fellow musicians and everyone to kind of control whatever you can right now, you know, whereas like we can't go back in the past and do, you know, and fix anything, and you can't necessarily predict the future. But honestly, my advice to anybody in my position is to be frugal and do whatever you can. You know, I mean, I feel like a lot of the people that I know have some kind of side hustle going on right now, and that's smart, and there's no shame in doing that.
If we could get Danny Hayes back in here too, from your perspective, the sort of same thing, you know.
Well, so I sort of look at it a little bit differently, and I kind of like what Wimmer was saying is, the good news is it's not a question of if live events come back. It's only a question of when, right? There's no universe that any of us could imagine where there's never live events again.
Right.
So that's not even on the table. And I think what we've done and what we encourage our colleagues and everybody and bands and agents and everybody to do is to find ways. You know, we may not make money, but if we can reduce our losses for a little while, that allows everybody to stay alive longer. So, you know, if we can do the pay-per-views, you know, we've just launched the first, you know, drive-in tour. We're not going to make a fortune on it, but it puts some people to work. It covers some of our bills and it extends the runway. And I think that's what the game is about right now. And I also, I'll tell you the bright side of this is I've never seen competitors be so open and honest with each other, which is just terrific, right? You know, we're all in it together, and every promoter knows they can call Danny or me, and we're going to give them honest, solid advice. And we're calling people and asking them advice. And you know, agents have been just incredible in understanding that terms and conditions can't quite be the same as they were. We've just got to get the ecosystem healthy again. And so everyone's going to get through. It's just you may have to do some things you don't want to do for a little while. You know, we didn't want to do any furloughs, and we had to do some furloughs. But we also are bringing those people back as fast as possible on these projects that we're trying to do.
Quickly over to you, Danny Wimmer. You mentioned the tour with Sully, and also the Corey Taylor event. So you're looking at a one tour and one sort of large scale special event. As you look at these things, maybe as test balloons in a way, what sorts of things logistically are you looking at? Like, okay, we need to make this work very well, or this might not work perfectly, and we'll need to make some changes down the line. What's the sort of checklist of things that you're going to look at to be able to do more of these in the short term to buy more time to get us back to a better normalcy?
We are, I mean, we're right now going to school. We're really, this drive-in tour, we're learning a lot. it's very important for us to understand the finances to lead into 2021. We're, you know, we're learning a lot on this drive-in, and some of it, to me, you know, drive-ins are the first phase. Second phase would be more of a social distancing model. So we have some social distancing models and some drive-in. It's really like what Hayes was saying. The one great thing about this is that us and the agents that and the acts are working together to listen. We're not all making what we usually would make. We're all working together to find a model that we're kind of like right now. Sully and Aaron and the agents, they're our partners on this to make the economics work, right? And it's one piece is very important to us is that we got our team, some of our team that were furloughed, we got them back working again. Aaron and Sully, they got some of their crew back working again, and then the agents, they're also trying to understand, you know, that this might be what our 21 looks like. So what we're doing right now is we're not waiting. We're trying to understand and figure out the model. We do believe drive-ins and social distancing is going to be here for us for the first 6 months. So that's why we're very highly focused on this year learning the business. Right now, I think we're going to have a profitable tour, not in the way that Aaron and Sully would have been making money in a traditional fashion, but it's going to pay some bills. It's going to get our crews back working. And then I'm a big believer that streaming is here to stay. I believe it's going to be around. I don't think it's going to replace live events, but I think it's just going to be streaming is going to be an outlet for an artist to get out their content. I think that I'm going to go back to you, Lizzie. If you want to talk to your fans, you're already going to have a relationship in this forum. And if she wants to go out and put out a track that she just wrote and wants to live stream it, but doesn't want to have to go do a 10-city tour, she'll have the ability to put out whatever message she's trying to put out. So live streaming is going to be good for that, but also it's going to be a new revenue stream for an artist and for promoters. We're really trying to learn it because we believe that we think, you know, when we come back into our festivals, we're going to be pay-per-viewing our festivals. So we're also going to be partnering with the artists where we're going to go and create another revenue stream for the artist. So we're not going back saying, you know, one of the things that Hayes and even Jared we're working on are going, hey, we want to pay-per-view our festival sets. And what we're going to do is create another revenue stream, one for the artist and for us. So we're right now using this time to really educate ourselves and to learn the space. So listen, that piece is going to be here. The live stream is going to be here. It's here to stay. The drive-in model is just for acts that need to get back, want to get the crews back working. I think Hayes will probably have 3 or 4 of these tours coming into spring of next year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And I got to tell you, and I feel like that, you know, right now, the artists, the managers and agents and promoters, we're all on the same side of the table. And some have the luxury to just sit it out because it was planned. They were going to write a record during this time. And there's some that had a record that have a record that's coming out or have a record that will be coming out, and they need touring to help get the message out. And if they're not comfortable touring, for Corey Taylor, he has a record that's coming out tomorrow, October 2nd. So this live stream, which right now the numbers are massive, he's going to have a massive platform to announce his record along with what his show is going to look like in the future.
We're starting to run short on time. I do want to cover a couple of other things. First of which, I'd like to get each of you to chime in on with the reality that we've all been living in for the last 6 months or so. What's something good that's come out of it in terms of a skill set? What is something that you have learned how to do better to cope with your job in the industry? Lizzie, perhaps since you're the one maybe most direct affected by online stuff, maybe we start with you. But what is a good skill you have learned over the course of 2020?
The silver lining, if we can call it that, and I have been very positive throughout this entire thing, and taking this opportunity to learn things about myself. And in fact, a lot of the projects that I've been in over the course of the last 9 months, I probably would have never said yes to if we were touring the way that we normally do. You know, we're out on the road for a good 250 days a year most times. So, these opportunities that have come on my plate. I'm making my debut on the 4th as a TV host on Access TV, and I've been doing a lot of things that are just more expanding myself and using this time to make the songs better, not just for Hailstorm, but just in general. I've been doing I've been helping a lot of young bands. I actually have a Zoom co-writing session with a band called The Warning, which are three metal sisters out of Mexico, and they're fantastic. But honestly, just trying to do my part and stay out there. And the beautiful thing about and very similar to what Danny Wimmer was saying, the beautiful thing about what's going on right now is that we do have this moment to learn new things or relook at how we do things and relook at how do we want to release music? Do we want to we heard Behemoth just put on this amazing production performance inside of an old church, and it was just hilarious. It was awesome. And so all of these things, we can look at these things in a positive way and say, okay, here's an area that maybe I wouldn't have actually thought about in order to get the word out there about either the music or the band or whatever it is. And we're taking all of those opportunities. So yeah, I don't know. My advice to anybody that's like me is absolutely say yes to adventure, even if you maybe would have said, oh, I don't know, back in the day, dive headfirst in that shark tank and you're going to figure it out as you go along. And so to me, I think that's been awesome. And also we're not on any type of schedule. So we had to make a schedule for ourselves, which has proven very productive. And there's no real deadline, which makes me nervous because there's no real deadline for ending our record. But the silver lining in that is that all of the songs that I thought were really great that I had written for the record before this pandemic, I've already beaten those because I've had the time away from everything and away from the road, away from radio, away from the label, all of these things that have enabled me to be a better artist. So, yeah, not to be super Miss Positivity, but we got this, as musicians and as people in this industry, we wouldn't be in this industry if we weren't able to adapt because, as even if things were business as usual, the schedule changes in a week, in a month, and things you can't actually plan. So yeah, this industry will absolutely thrive. And like you guys were saying, it's not if, it's when. It all erupts into the new normal.
An excellent answer, and same question. And again, I want to get everybody in on this one. Danny Hayes, we'll go to you next. Something that you have learned, a skill set, an ability since all of this started.
Yeah, I think along the lines of what Lizzie is saying, it's forced our company to be more creative. And I think that, I love hearing an artist talk about trying new things. I mean, that's music to my ears as a promoter, that, artists are opening their mind to new stuff. Promoters we're being challenged to find new ideas, and we're calling agents and trying to brainstorm together new ideas. So I think it's really opened our creativity as a company across every department.
Jared Martin, same thing for you. What have you learned through all this, and what skill set, if any, have you picked up?
Yeah, I think as an agent, the biggest thing that I will carry moving forward, or one of the bigger things, there's a couple things, but is that I've gotten really good over the years at knowing where, my act's going to be in 6 months, knowing where my life is going to be in 6 months, knowing where I'm going to be next week, or where my act's going to be on Friday night. They're going to be playing X venue and wherever. And I think transitioning from a world where, it's very process based and plan based to a world there really can't be a plan. Sure, we have plans that we've set up to work for next year, but learning how to adjust to the idea that when you wake up in the morning, your job that day is working on things that may or may not happen when they're supposed to happen, and how to be extremely fluid. And I think, while I feel I had good communication skills before, communication has had to be so much better in ways that, you're talking to your artists and your managers to let them know it's all going to be okay. Because in the beginning of this, there was so much doom and gloom, and we hadn't adjusted to this new normal, and helping understand that we're all going to get through this. It's going to be, when shows do come back, because it's not if, when, it's going to be huge. I'm sure, on the festival front, festivals will be up and have some of hopefully their best festivals ever, and wherever, people put those on, and our acts will hopefully have some of their biggest shows they've ever played, because there's just, everybody could use time away from, overplaying marketplaces. And I think that'll help. And the other thing is for me, is realizing the industry we work in, we're probably 6 degrees of separation from anything you could think of wanting to do, in terms of the relationships the act has with their managers, the managers have with their agents. I work at CAA, where we touch sports, film, television, and business development, where if I have an idea, I can call somebody who'll get me in touch with somebody to get things done. And I think, that's the theme of what we've all been talking about. It's what Danny's done. Danny's gone from being a festival producer to, a content creator in the live streams he's doing. And, he's doing a lot more than just putting on a virtual concert. He's talking about doing concert films, and that's, he's becoming a content producer. And that's something, maybe he wasn't an expert at before, but he's used this time to become an expert at it. And that'll be something he'll get to do. And I've been utilizing my relationships in my company to talk about ways we're talking about ways to get into other revenue streams in the business that aren't just live, because as an agency, you have one source of revenue, your live touring income, which has been pretty much, let's call it's been 2% of what it would be on a normal year. So we've been looking at other ways to do things. We're talking about other companies, doing things. It's just, I think the entrepreneurial aspect in whatever you do, whether you're a manager or an artist, there are so many things you could be doing, and your relationship base, somebody can get you to do anything you want to do, anything you can dream of. And that's why you're in this business, because you dreamed. And I think there are so many different things you can do. And utilizing that skill of knowing how to get things done has been, my biggest thing that I've learned over the last 6 months.
Kenny Wimmer, now you, what have you learned here?
Well, for me, this is the first time we've ever had a timeout in DWP. I mean, we literally officially had our business stops when we were always running 100 miles per hour. And what I've been doing has been reflecting on the past and how we're going to move forward as a company. Where's our vulnerabilities? Listen, hopefully we'll never see this happen again, but it's giving me time to think. And one of the things that me and Hayes have been really focusing on is the consumer. We really are trying to figure out how to have a better relationship with the consumer, and how to have a year-round relationship with the consumer. And also, I don't like the feeling that our business just stopped, and this, as everybody knows, we were also looking at diversifying our company. We're going to go into the touring lane, and we brought on Joe Litbag, who's the president of DWP, who is an expert in the touring space. And we just had this, I feel like we're going to come out stronger out of this because we've had time to reflect. We've built our management team. We've strengthened our relationship as a team. Um, our communication is better because we're not running around 100 miles per hour. I've used this time to really reflect, and I can't. My head has been up high through this whole process. It hasn't been doom and gloom because we've been using this time to figure out how to come back bigger and stronger as a company. And and where our vulnerabilities have been. And we're gonna set up our e-commerce business. We believe we have a good e-commerce business, but we're watching other businesses out there booming right now. And so we've been using this time to figure out how to take these other revenue areas and how to move those forward, so we're not going to be so vulnerable if this ever happens to us again. So we've been doing a lot of reflecting, and it's allowed us at DWP to come closer as a family, and I'm very proud of our team and how we've come together and stay positive. And I think when the gates open back up, you're going to see a stronger DWP with a different mindset. And when you're open for business and you're running 100 miles per hour, you sometimes forget, and you forget who your boss really is. And our boss is the consumer, and that's one thing that we are determined when we come back is to be the best customer service company we can be.
Well, listen, there's a million other things I would love to talk about, but we are out of time. So maybe further on down the road, we can continue the discussion. But I want to thank each one of you for taking the time out. Danny Wimmer of Danny Wimmer Presents, Danny Hayes of DWP, Jared Martin of CAA, and of course, the incredible Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. Thank you all for taking the time out and giving the insight. And I hope I get to see each one of you in the flesh sooner rather than later.
Yeah, let's hope we're all hanging backstage at Sonic Temple sometime in the near future.
That's right.
With
Amen.
Dan and all of us
Amen.
sharing whatever it is we drink that day, if anything. So I look forward to that day.